I want to start with a little bit of a confession. For the first few years that I taught ear train at the university level, I was getting it wrong. Not the content was fine. I was getting the practice model wrong. And it's such an important part of the training. I was telling students to drill and exercise until they scored a perfect 100%. But I watched, and throughout the semester, as that one piece of advice, it silently put my students' ears to sleep. And what started as great motivation turned to sadness when suddenly the drills became overbearing. They became too difficult. And so that's what I want to talk about today, the ear training trap. So here's my thesis, if you will. I'm going to spend this video trying to defend it, to explain it to you. If you have been grinding the same interval drill or the same chord exercise for weeks, you're chasing that perfect score before you let yourself move on, stop. So momentum beats perfection every time. Context beats isolation. And this is the one that makes people genuinely angry. A few honest mistakes in your training material will not hurt you. They may even help you. Most of us, we treat ear training like it's a math problem to be solved. Master minor thirds before I have earned the major thirds. I need 100% on triads before I'm allowed to touch sevenths. This is about you applying protocols to your own ear training so that no matter what course you're taking, you can get the most benefit from it. Or inventing your own exercises. So let's talk more about this. So here's the fix. And I will warn you, it is going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel wrong because it asks you to do something musicians are trained from day one never to do. It asks you to leave the job unfinished. The rule is this: spend no more than 3 to 7 days on any single ear training drill. At day 7, even if your score is messy, even if you are still missing a third of them, you move on to the next lesson anyway, on purpose. And I know every instinct you have is telling you that this is sloppy, that this is not how serious musicians work. So let me reframe it for you just a little bit. What you're actually doing is keeping your brain in a state that learning scientists call desirable difficulty. This is not a made-up theory. The brain maps and retains sound patterns dramatically faster when it is continually forced to decode fresh, changing material. That's what we're doing here. The struggle here is not a sign the method is failing you. The struggle is the method. A messy score on brand new material is worth far more to your ear than a perfect score on material you have quietly memorized. It's momentum over perfection. And I'll say one more thing. If you are taking a course where you have to master one element before moving on to the next, I'd encourage you to still stop at 7 days and keep going, because you're going to get in over your head, but that effort where you're trying to hear anything you can and trying to keep up is still going to push your ear further than if you were to stay and try and master each lesson. Mastery of lesson does not equal mastery of the ear. It equals mastery of the lesson. That's it. Momentum over perfection. Always. There is a physical layer to all this that almost nobody talks about, and I want to spend just a minute on it because it matters more than people think. Ear training is not a purely cognitive task. It requires a real, and frankly, slightly annoying, degree of neurological and physical relaxation. When you fixate on one stubborn lesson, playing it, failing it, playing it again, you generate frustration. And underneath that frustration, a low, kind of humming performance anxiety. And that tension is not just an emotional inconvenience you can push through. It physically changes the way your auditory system processes frequency. Now, I've watched students who genuinely could not identify a chord on Monday, all of a sudden identify it instantly on Thursday. And nothing had changed except that they stopped being angry at it. They stopped being frustrated. So if you are stressed, your brain quite literally cannot absorb the pitch. So part of the reason we move on after a week is not only cognitive efficiency, it's that staying too long sort of poisons a well. A frustrated ear is functionally the same as a deaf ear. And that's an important point to consider. The definition of mastery has to fundamentally change. Not gradually, it has to actually flip. And I think this has to happen in any well-designed course for it to really work. Okay, so at this inflection point, I make students stop doing pure isolated identification and I change the question entirely. So the new question is not, what is this isolated chord in a vacuum? The new question becomes, where does this sound want to go? So real musical mastery, the thing music educators call audiation, is not the ability necessarily to just name a note frozen in time. It is the ability to track tension, pull, and resolution as they are happening, to hear a chord and feel in your body the direction it is straining toward. And you got to notice the timing here, because the timing is the part that makes it clever. We change the rules of mastery right before introducing the most unstable structures in the basic harmonic vocabulary. It's not an accident. By the time the 7 chords arrive, your brain is already asking the functional question instead of the cataloging question. You're no longer just building up an arsenal of material. You stopped collecting vocabulary words. You've started listening to what's actually going on in the music. And so we have to change things at this point. So the analogy I like to use is spoken language. No toddler in the history of our species has waited until they had a complete dictionary perfect vocabulary before attempting to string together sentences. They speak in broken, messy, incorrect fragments, and they do it pretty quickly. And if you have a child, you'll know each day it's like, where did they suddenly learn to speak sentences? It was just a collection of words, and then all of a sudden they're telling you stories. They learn through context, through rhythm, through repetition, through the flow of real conversation. The errors get sanded down by use, not before use. The errors are in the conversation. Now, I know that adults learn in a completely different way, but music works exactly the same way, and we keep forgetting it. In real music, playing live, improvising, sight reading, transcribing a solo, you do not get to freeze time and analyze a chord at your leisure. The music keeps moving whether you are ready or not. So the skill you actually need is a flow state, the ability to track harmony dynamically as it streams past your mind's ear in real time. And you can't build real-time skill with a practice method that depends at every single step on stopping time. So flashcards, they have their place, but the goal was always conversation. Okay, now we arrive at the part of this that makes people genuinely angry, and the part of my thesis I most want to defend properly, because it is a part most worth defending. So what happens if there's an actual mistake in the training material? Suppose an instructor, suppose me, in an early lesson plays a major 7th and labels it a minor 7th. A real, honest error, just sitting there in the course audio. The position I hold, and the position I want to defend right now, is that an occasional honest error like that does not meaningfully damage your development. And it turns out it's not actually an excuse. It is almost embarrassingly well supported. Let me show you the 3 pillars it stands on, so you can make your own conclusion. So our first pillar is categorical perception. Your brain does not hear pitch as a smooth, infinite gradient. It never has. It sorts sound into discrete mental buckets, so categories, in very much the same way it sorts the sounds of speech. So research in speech and music cognition shows that once you have heard enough correct examples of a sound, your brain builds what is called a prototype, a strong, stable internal model of what, say, a minor 7th actually is. Now, do the math with me. Suppose a chorus gives you 500 clean, correct examples of a minor 7th. Your brain builds this prototype and a firm categorical boundary around it. Then example number 501 is a mislabeled one. A major seventh wearing the wrong name tag. Your brain does not panic and rewrite the entire category. It registers an acoustic outlier that contradicts 500 consistent data points, and everything the surrounding context is telling it, it flags that outlier as a blip, and it overrides it. So one wrong example cannot break a well-built bucket. The category is simply stronger than the error. Pillar 2, and this one comes straight out of machine learning, overfitting. When you train a neural network on data that is 100% sterile and mathematically perfect, you get a model that is brilliant in the laboratory and very nearly useless everywhere else. It has, in effect, memorized the lab. It cannot generalize. Engineers run into this so reliably that they now do something that on its face sounds insane. They deliberately inject noise into the training data. Background hiss, small errors, random variation. It is called noise injection or stochastic variation. And it forces the network to stop obsessing over tiny surface details and instead learn the real, abstract, large-scale shape of the concept. Now, your ear is a neural network. The very same thing applies to it. So let me bring the whole thesis home. If you are stuck on a brutal drill today, I am giving you formal permission, as someone who has thought about this for a very long time, to abandon it. Not forever, for now. Move on to the next chapter. Change the context. Accept the messy score as the price of a sharper ear, because that is precisely what it is. You have to stop treating your ear like a calculator. You're trying to get up to 100%. It is far closer to a language you are learning to speak. It is organic, it is contextual, it is built for motion, and it's allowed to be a little bit imperfect. Momentum over perfection, context over isolation. And trust the noise. The noise helps. So 2 things before you go. First, down in the comments, tell me the single interval or chord or exercise that is tripping you up the most right now. Be specific. I read these and I pull the most common ones to build micro exercises around future videos. Second, if this reframed how you think about practice, subscribe, because this channel is where I keep doing exactly this. The techniques, the processes, the methodology.